In his book, Steal Like an Artist, Austin Kleon is giving us 10 bold claims. He says, nobody has told us about art. Is creativity really mostly theft? Let's break it down. The first is an instruction to steal like an artist. He makes a bold claim that artists look at everything as an opportunity to steal. And he also says that nothing is original. I already don't agree with that one, because how, if something is not original, can it be stolen by anybody? Who's making the claim? As you can see, I have really fine-combed through this book, and there are quite a few contradictory statements in here. But it's also a matter of interpretation, what stealing actually means. And a little later on, Austin actually differentiates that stealing is more, in his sense, a way of getting inspired and picking the things that we like and keeping them. Now, stealing actually means with the intention of never to return. But the moment you've looked at an artwork or we've read a piece of writing, we've already taken it with us. So what he doesn't mean, and that's important to differentiate, is plagiarism. This is not an invitation to plagiarize. It's an invitation to study somebody's work and to get as many influences as possible into a type of ledger that we then can create from. What I really love is his encouraging tone. He's asking us to just give it a go and to not wait until we're ready, which is a common theme in creativity books. Probably because creative people tend to overthink a little bit. Make things and know thyself is very accurate, because this is actually how we encounter also what our interests are in our art, just by making it. And to illustrate his attitude further, he's explaining it with visual concepts. For example, here he's drawing a lot of different stars to show that we cannot actually make a copy of something exactly as we're intended to. Now, this is one of these examples that doesn't really hold, in the sense that we can make perfect copies of something, pretty much of everything at this point. However, what I think he's hinting at is that if we wanted to get inspired by something, even as artists, we would always kind of bring our own drift to it, and it would end up being something else. And that is a really valuable thought that I kind of got from looking at his drawing. And it's also how, as humans, learn. Now, I bought my copy on eBay, so unfortunately I caught one that's already kind of broken, but it gives me the opportunity to show you single pages. This one in particular I find very interesting, where he's comparing good theft versus bad theft. And I personally would replace this one with getting inspired, but you get the drift. There's good theft and bad theft. Also, Austin has a really broad idea of what it means to be creative, which I adore. He added some athletes' quotes in here. For example, this one by Kobe Bryant. I have stolen all of these moves from all these great players. I just try to do them proud, the guys who came before, because I learned so much from them. It's all in the name of the game. It's a lot bigger than me. So here comes an idea that is kind of connected to swarm intelligence, where as a collective we learn from each other and we always continue to develop it further, which helps us evolve as a whole. And then if we do that, we actually get all of these different inspirations and we combine them into something entirely new. As somebody who is interested in so many different things, I really love this part where he says, don't worry about unity from piece to piece. What unifies all of your work is the fact that you made it. Sometimes, especially in modern times, it's easy to get caught up in the idea of creating a brand or a recognizable body of work. And that is actually something that will naturally happen out of your ideas that you're interested in. So there's a natural filter built in just from what we're curious about. And eventually there will be a unifying kind of red thread that will lead us through all of the different interests and unify them together. And the more we work, the clearer it becomes to us. Also, being a brand is entirely overrated. I think it's important to have freedom and to break the rules, because otherwise we get bored, and boredom is the death of the artist. At least this kind of boredom. Not the kind of boredom where we stop scrolling and have time, but the kind of boredom where we are disenchanted with our own work. And this is such a common block for creatives. I think it's worth avoiding. So this is a reminder for myself to not kill my joy with my own rules. There is a piece of advice that is really timely for me right now, because I feel like I'm looking for something that hasn't been created yet in terms of creativity books. And he's giving this advice. Complain about the way other people make software by making software, which is a quote by Andrew Torres. And for me, that means that even if I don't find everything that I want to find in these creativity books, I can create my own. right? And that's a very helpful reminder to just keep on going and to actually create original work, which is contradictory a little bit to what he says here. And I think the idea about taking originality out as a concept is that we relieve the pressure of having to be original. But have people been original? Absolutely, totally. You know, the first cubist was original. The first person that used photography for abstracts has been original. So just some examples, random. People who, I don't know, put writing on a t-shirt to make a message, which can be an art form. There's a lot of originality out there, but I think it's helpful to get rid of the idea of having to chase it, because that really can create a major boundary in our head and block us from creating. Which leads me to the last and most important lesson that I personally love from this book, which is creativity is subtraction. And these types of aesthetics are typical for Austin Kleon. He likes to black things out of newspapers. And here we speak about the freedom that comes from limitations, because the idea of having the choice of everything is totally overwhelming. And what we can do to create new freedom is to actually limit ourselves, which is interesting if you define an interest in something. For example, for me, I can paint anything. Now, do I want to paint anything? No, because if I wanted to paint anything, I could paint everything, and then I will paint nothing. So actually deciding for some time to create abstracts only or to create figurative paintings only has really helped me advance in my art and in some specific interests. So allow yourself to be intentional for some time and see where it takes you. That's kind of what I took from this one. The idea that you can do anything is absolutely terrifying. Accurate. And what I also really enjoyed is this example that he gave here. I don't know if you're familiar with Dr. Seuss. He wrote The Cat in the Hat and also The Grinch and stuff like that. And the more his editor challenged him to limit his words, the more interesting and kind of artful his books became. For example, his best-selling children's book, Green Eggs and Ham, was written with only 50 different words. What is the baseline for me after reading this book? I think it's worth reading. Do I think it's worth following religiously? No. But I also don't think that's what Austin intended with this book. It's a playful way to looking at how to get your creative juices flowing. Don't get stuck on the specific meanings of the words. Like me, in my first round, I marked everything. It's not that serious, and that's exactly what his strength is. And he illustrated it for us with a lot of his fun, sometimes beautiful, but always encouraging drawings. And if you want to go a little bit deeper on this book, I would actually like to encourage you to take on the principles with which he wrote this book, which is to make your own drawings, make your own commentary, and create your own 10 best practices nobody told you about art. And then if you're open to it, share them with me, share them with the world, because that's actually what leads us to Austin's next book, which is this one, Show Your Work, that I'm going to talk about very soon. And it ties neatly into his first book, where he encourages us to also share our work, not just make it, not just do it for ourselves, but also in a very boundaried way, share it with other people. So, see you soon.